Before the sweet facade of Halloween, before the laughter and the candy, there was a night steeped in primal dread. A night when the breath of winter kissed the land, and the very fabric of reality thinned to a whisper. This was Samhain. The ancient Celts knew it not as a celebration, but as a chilling survival. A time when the living walked with the dead, and the monsters stirred from the otherworld. Before we continue, show us some support and subscribe the channel. The end of life, the start of fear for the ancient Celts. Life was an endless dance with the land, governed by the sun's rhythm. Samhain marked the brutal end of that cycle. The harvests were in, the warmth of summer a fading memory. The world descended into the cold, barren half of the year. But it wasn't just the physical world that changed. It was the metaphysical. This was the hinge of the year, a liminal space. The veil between our world, the mortal coil of turf and blood, and the otherworld, the ethereal realm of spirits and supernatural beings, known as the Aos, became desperately thin. Imagine a curtain drawn back, just for one night. What horrors might step through? The hungry dead and the Phaons. Samhain, the gates of the otherworld swung open. Firstly, the beloved dead. Your ancestors, perhaps, returning to the warmth of their hearths. To guide them, families would leave food and drink, setting a place at the table, lighting candles in windows. But not all who crossed the threshold sought comfort. The Celts held a profound, often terrifying, belief in the Aos, the Sidhe, or fairies. These were not the whimsical sprites of children's tales. The Fae of Samhain were powerful, capricious, and often malevolent beings. They could grant immense fortune or inflict unspeakable torment. They roamed freely on this night, stealing souls, cursing land, or luring mortals into their realm, from which there was often no return. Imagine the terror of hearing a haunting melody drift from the woods, knowing it could be a beautiful Fae luring you to dance your life away, or a monstrous Paka transforming into a dark horse to trick you onto its back, carrying you to a desolate fate. The great fires of Samhain. In the face of such profound cosmic chaos, survival demanded action. The most powerful ritual of Samhain was the lighting of the great bonfires, the Samhain fires. As dusk fell, all hearth fires in every home were extinguished. A terrifying darkness descended, symbolizing the death of the old year. Then, under the watchful eyes of priests and elders, a new, sacred fire was kindled, often with ritualistic precision, drawing sparks from flint or rubbing wood, purifying the flame. From this central roaring inferno, embers would be carried back to every home, relighting the hearth, signifying renewal, cleansing, and a communal defiance against the encroaching darkness. But these fires were more than just warmth. They were barriers. Livestock, precious sources of life through winter, were driven between two bonfires, a desperate plea for protection from disease and evil spirits. People too would leap through the flames, believing it purged them of ill luck and ensured fertility for the year to come. Sacrifice and appeasements. Such potent rituals often came with a price. To appease the capricious gods of the harvest and the powerful, unpredictable forces of the otherworld, sacrifices were made. Valuable portions of the harvest, livestock, offerings thrown into the inferno. These weren't mere gifts. They were desperate pleas, bargains struck with forces beyond mortal comprehension, hoping for safe passage through winter's embrace. Historians debate the extent of human sacrifice during Samhain, but the fear driving such beliefs was undeniably real. The sheer weight of existence, clinging to life through the long, barren months, would have justified any desperate act to ensure the goodwill of the unseen powers. Masks against the monsters, the veil thin, simply staying indoors was not enough. The ancient Celts devised a cunning strategy to navigate the spirit-infested night. Disguise. Not for merriment, but for sheer survival. Villagers donned masks and costumes, often grotesque, made from animal skins, carved gourds, or painted faces. The purpose was twofold: to confuse malevolent spirits, making them believe the living were simply more of their own kind, or to embody a more terrifying presence, scaring away any lesser evils that dared to cross over. Imagine walking out into the blackness, not knowing if the shadowy figure ahead was your neighbor or a hungry ghoul. Every rustle in the leaves, every distant moan, a potential harbinger of doom. And with this disguise came noise, the banging of pots, the shouting, the eerie calls, anything to frighten away the entities that sought to claim a soul. Divination. Peering beyond the veil. But Samhain wasn't just about protection. It was also a night of potent revelation. With the veil so thin, the future itself seemed to shimmer, accessible to those brave enough to look. Divination became a crucial practice, a desperate attempt to gain insight into the unforgiving year ahead. Apples were sacred. Peeling an apple in one continuous strip and throwing it over one's shoulder could reveal the initial of a future love. Nuts roasted in pairs could foretell marital fortunes. Gazing into mirrors or bowls of water in the firelight might show glimpses of health, prosperity, or even death in the coming winter. These weren't parlor games. These were serious, often terrifying attempts to glimpse the inevitable, to prepare for a winter that could claim lives, to know if the gods would be benevolent or wrathful. The echoes of Samhain legacy. As centuries turned and new beliefs took hold, the stark, raw terror of Samhain began to soften. The church's All Hallows' Eve blended with the pagan rites. The fearsome fae became the fairies of myth, and the terrifying disguises evolved into the costumes of today. But look closely at our Halloween traditions, and you'll find the indelible fingerprints of Samhain. The glowing jack-o'-lantern, a direct descendant of the fiery turnip meant to ward off spirits. The costumes, a ghostly echo of those worn to deceive ancient horrors. The very idea of the dead returning, transformed into friendly ghosts and mischievous spirits, reminds us that humanity's oldest fears are often the deepest. It was a time of desperate magic, profound respect for the unseen, and a chilling acknowledgement that the world we inhabit is but one thin layer in a vast, unknowable cosmos. So as you celebrate this Halloween, remember the true terror that once drove people to extremes. Remember Samhain, and know that somewhere the veil still thins.